It is not only the Korean language where you see a difference between spoken language and written language. In fact, it's only natural that written language is more sophisticated, more formal, and potentially more fancy than spoken language because you just have more time to choose the right words. In spoken language, there is so much more you can express through your intonation, your facial expressions, and gestures, but you just can't do that in a written sentence. So you need to be more precise with your words. So that's the basic difference between when you write and when you speak. And now let's start talking about what you are probably really curious about. So what are some of those differences in the Korean language? I will give you some specific examples, but before we continue, if you haven't visited our website before or haven't visited it in a while, please go to talktomeinkorean.com for fun and systematic Korean learning. And you can also, while you're there, get our books and ebooks there too. I'll be waiting for you there. So back to the topic. I personally think that the gap between written and spoken language is wider in Korean than in English, but I'll leave that up to you to decide. Now, let me give you a sentence in English and then change it into Korean, both in spoken form and written form. And here's a sentence about Yeji being caught using Instagram at work by her boss, Juyeon. So here. Yeji went on Instagram and she was about to post her selfie, but Juyeon was standing right behind her and staring at her. I think that's something you would say in spoken English, right? But if it were a sentence in a novel, maybe you would change it like this. Yeji went on Instagram, but as she was about to post her selfie, she saw Juyeon standing right behind her, staring at her. A bit different, but not drastically different. Now let's do the same exercise in Korean. The first case is if you are saying this to a friend in casual language, 반말. 예지 씨가 인스타에 들어가서 셀카를 올리려고 하는데 주연 씨가 바로 뒤에 서서 쳐다보고 있는 거야. The second case is if you're saying the same thing but in 존댓말, formal language. 예지 씨가 인스타에 들어가서 셀카를 올리려고 하는데 주연 씨가 바로 뒤에 서서 쳐다보고 있는 거예요. Now, you will say these things in spoken Korean and also write them in maybe text messages to a friend because text messages are very casual in general, right? And now let's change it into a sentence you would see in a novel. First of all, you wouldn't say 예지 씨 or 주연 씨 in a novel when it's a third person whose actions you are describing as a narrator. You just use the names alone like 예지 or 주연. So you can write something like this. 예지가 인스타에 들어가서 셀카를 올리려고 하는데 주연이 바로 뒤에 서서 쳐다보고 있었다. The ending immediately becomes different because in a novel, you usually use the narrative 다 ending. Also in the part 인스타에 들어가서, you can drop 서 and just say 들어가 in written Korean. So it becomes something like this. 예지가 인스타에 들어가 셀카를 올리려고 하는데 주연이 바로 뒤에 서서 쳐다보고 있었다. And also in a novel, the ending so-and-so는 것이었다 is often used and it literally means it was that this happened or what was happening was so-and-so. So you can write 예지가 인스타에 들어가 셀카를 올리려고 하는데 주연이 바로 뒤에 서서 쳐다보고 있는 것이었다. But then another common expression you use for when is 순간, which means moment. So you say 예지가 인스타에 들어가 셀카를 올리려고 하는 순간 주연이 바로 뒤에 서서 쳐다보고 있는 것이었다. And here you can say that 예지 could feel 주연's gaze. So you can say something like this too. 예지가 인스타에 들어가 셀카를 올리려고 하는 순간 주연이 바로 뒤에 서서 쳐다보고 있음을 느낄 수 있었다. And another possible sentence is 인스타에 들어가 셀카를 올리려고 하는 순간 예지는 바로 뒤에 서서 자신을 쳐다보고 있는 주연의 시선을 느낄 수 있었다. So I'm not saying that this is only common in Korean. Of course, this kind of narration-based sentence style is also possible in every language, but I'm giving you some specific examples in the Korean language. And in fact, there are a lot of specific words and expressions that are used frequently only in written sentences. And let's take a look at some of them, okay? The sentences I will show you on this side can be used in spoken or written Korean because in casual emails or text messages, you can write like you talk. And the sentences that I will show you on this side are usually only used in written form because they sound very, very formal, okay? So for but or however, you say 근데 or 그런데. But in writing, 하지만 is also commonly used. Here's a sentence. But it won't be prepared by Friday. If you say it, you can say 근데 금요일까지는 준비가 안 될 것 같아요. But if you write it, 하지만 금요일까지는 준비가 안 될 것 같습니다. Next, for and, you say 그리고 and 또한. And here's the next sentence. And there is also a budget problem. In speaking, you say 그리고 예산 문제도 있어요. In writing, you write 또한 예산 문제도 있습니다. And now, for or, there's so-and-so 나 or 또는. In speaking, if you want to say, we need to rent a cafe or a studio, you use a sentence like 카페나 스튜디오를 빌려야 돼요. But in writing, you write 카페 또는 스튜디오를 대관해야 합니다. Using a more fancy, more formal word, 대관하다. There's also a difference in sentence structure. Let's take this sentence for example. A lot of people watch YouTube on their way to work. 출근길에 유튜브를 보는 사람들이 많아요. 많은 사람들이 출근길에 유튜브를 시청합니다. In this case, the sentence structure itself is different, right? Saying 많은 사람들 doesn't sound very natural in spoken Korean, but in a more formal sounding written sentence, it's fine. There are also some expressions that you would only see in written sentences such as so-and-so 자, which means when one did something, another thing happened. For example, 서랍을 열자 열쇠가 하나 들어 있었습니다. When he opened the drawer, there was a key in it. In spoken Korean, it'll be 서랍을 열었더니 열쇠가 하나 들어 있었어요. Another expression is so-and-so 등, which means etc. As in this sentence, 의자, 책상, 컴퓨터 등을 구입해야 합니다, which is in writing. And in a more casual spoken sentence, it can be 의자, 책상, 컴퓨터 같은 걸 사야 돼요. So those are just some examples of words and phrases that are more commonly used in written sentences than in spoken, more day-to-day conversational Korean. And even though you might be thinking right now, oh my gosh, there's even more stuff to study, don't worry, because you don't have to try to memorize all the rules of written Korean versus spoken Korean. The difference between spoken and written can be big, but as long as you keep paying attention to the sentences native or fluent speakers use, and the certain circumstances that the sentences are used in, you will be able to naturally imitate the style difference and find yourself also using these different styles in your own Korean writing. And that is it for this video, everyone. Be sure to subscribe for more video lessons like this one and hit the bell icon to turn on your notifications for our channel. And for more fun and systematic Korean learning, please visit us at talktomeinkorean.com. 감사합니다. Bye!